So good morning. Thank you for attending this webinar, An Introduction to the UK Data Service. My name is Emily Durrant and I'm going to be presenting to you today. I am a data access and use assistant working as part of the access team within the UK Data Archive. And part of my day-to-day role is managing data applications, help desk queries and issuing credentials to enable researchers to access our data. So this is kind of the overview of this webinar, the kinds of things that we'll be covering. I'll be explaining a little bit about who we are, what we do, what data is, what sort of data we hold, as well as talking you through the sorts of online resources we have and the guidance that we can provide you with. There will be time for some questions at the end. You can pop these in the chat box at the bottom of the screen throughout the session, but I will be answering them all at the end, just in case I continue to answer the question that you might have. And there will be some time at the end for you to explore our website as well. We've set aside kind of 5 minutes for that. So once we've gone through the webinar, you can kind of go onto the website, have a look at the things that I've kind of spoken about, and that will be the chance to ask any questions that you might have then. We do have some interactive elements to this session, so you can use your desktop or smartphone to access something called Mentimeter, and I'll provide you with the details for that in just a second. Great, so that's the details there. If you could please go to menti.com, you'll be then prompted for that code there. I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then I'll swap my screen so I'm on Mentimeter too, and we can get the interactive part going. It's just a couple of questions about why you've decided to join us and what you hope to get out of the session, just so we can make sure that we can do that for you in this session, and also kind of tailor any future sessions to suit what you guys would like to see from us. So those details are there. Why have you chosen to attend this webinar? So we've got to learn more about the whole service, learn more about secondary data options, just curious, perfect, we like curious. Just get to know about UK data sources, new PhD student, perfect. Understanding of data available and more info about the service, starting PhD, need to get my head around data, to gain more knowledge of the UK data service to better advise my researcher colleagues who might want to use it, perfect. I think you all come to the right place, so that's good, it's looking good. To learn more about data available for potential use, perfect. Various data sets available, registering. Brilliant, always recommend UKDS, thank you very much. Gain more information about how to access data restrictions and common issues. I've just joined the UK Data Service. Brilliant, perfect, well that's all good. I really hope that you guys will find this session useful. I will advertise it in the webinar, but there is also a follow-up to this webinar on Thursday about finding and accessing data. So we touch on it in this one, but there is also a finding and accessing webinar on Thursday, which you might find helpful as well. So next question, what are you hoping to learn or take away from this session, please? What data is available to access? Brilliant, I'll be talking you guys through all of the different types of data that we have, what sort of data I can access, top tips and advice. Brilliant, more availability of secondary data for undergraduate students, knowledge of how to access data. Brilliant. Brilliant, okay. Understanding the data acquisition process, understand the data available and levels of access, how to get a starting point for gathering appropriate data, understand how the UKDS works and how to use it. Brilliant, I'm liking the sound of this. Perfect, we can definitely help a majority of you today, which is brilliant. Availability of data, what is available, find the proper data and the suitable data for my research and how I can get the data. Brilliant. Perfect, we can certainly answer most of these, and if I don't cover, I can definitely ask them in the question section at the end. Some of these I'm quite conscious will kind of be in the next webinar with finding and accessing data. As I say, we do touch on it, but I can certainly answer in the Q&A at the end if we don't quite touch upon any questions or anything you'd like to know. Okay, so the next one, are you already registered with the UK Data Service? Yes or no? I'm just curious to see how many of you aren't or are. I will run through how to register with us in this webinar, which looks like it might be quite helpful for a lot of you who haven't yet registered, which is absolutely fine. That's the point of this, so that's good. The next couple of questions will only be relevant to a couple of you based on the results of this, but we'll go with it. Brilliant. So most of you aren't, which is interesting, which is good. This is what we're here for. So have you tried to find data from the UK Data Service prior to coming to this webinar? So we're just kind of curious to see how many of you have dabbled in it, how many of you haven't. So most of you are saying no, you haven't, which is perfect. And those of you who have, welcome too. If you have tried to access data from our website before, have you managed to find what you wanted? I will be showing you kind of some of the tools that you can use to access some of our data. As I say, and also run through the sorts of data that we hold. So brilliant. If you didn't find what you wanted, please could you let us know why you couldn't? Was it that perhaps you couldn't find it in our data catalogue, or you found something that might be kind of broadly related to your research but not exactly? We're just interested to see kind of why you were unable to find it, so we can hopefully help you and tailor any future events to, and this one, to help you. Not specific enough to my research, okay, absolutely, fair enough. I have no idea why I didn't, that's why I'm here. I found a lot of potentially relevant material, but then some was not actually available to download. Okay, interesting. We can have a chat about that in the questions at the end if we need to. Data sets were too broad, might have done something wrong in a search. Brilliant. Wasn't really sure how to navigate the catalogue to find what I wanted. Haven't used it before, so didn't know what was available. Brilliant. This is all really good. This is really helpful. Thank you. Maybe did not use the right search. We do have a couple of search options available. Our next webinar, Finding and Accessing Data, does go into a little bit more detail about the different tools and search tips than this one does. But we can certainly talk about it in this one as well. That's absolutely fine. Needed more insight into levels of access. Wanted something quite specific, which took some time to find. Brilliant. Microdata, we'll be talking about microdata quite a lot in this one, so I hope that helps you. I wasn't looking for specific data, but got a bit lost. That's perfect. We have got a new website as well, so I wonder if maybe that has resulted in some of these as well. Brilliant. If you did find what you wanted to access, did you successfully access the data? And if you didn't access it, please could you let us know why you didn't? So this is if you found it, but you didn't access it. It could be that you were just having a browse and wanted to get a little bit of an idea of what was on the website. Or this question might not be relevant to you, but that's absolutely fine as well. If anybody would like to add anything, please, thank you. If anyone would like to add anything, please feel free. But I know that they're not going to be relevant to everybody, so that's fine. Didn't know how to use it, absolutely fine. This is really useful for us to, not sure it works. Yeah, okay. Not just like, perfect. Okay, it involved having to contact the data depositor and I wasn't completely sure if it was relevant data yet. Maybe what I wanted was too specific. Okay, thank you. That was really, really useful. I think that's the last question. Yes, brilliant. So thank you very much for that. That's really, really useful for us to get that feedback from you guys. And as I say, that means that the question bit at the end, and when I'm going through this presentation, I've got those comments in mind and I'll try and alter the presentation accordingly. So As I say, please do feel free to type questions as you go, but I will be answering them all at the end. Okay, so we'll start off by talking a little bit about what we are and who we are, and what we do. So the UK Data Service holds the UK's largest collection of research data. It's home to the UK's only nationally funded research infrastructure. So we're funded by the ESRC, the Economic and Social Research Council, for curating and providing access to social science data. We've been influential across the world. It was first established in its original form at the University of Essex in 1967. And that is where we are still based. We have an office in Essex and a University of Essex and an office in Manchester as well. Pioneers in data curation and secure long-term research access to data, our expertise continues to transform social science teaching and learning alongside evidence-based policy reform across the UK. Our data management guidance, best practice policies and protocols are used by national data archives, international research organisations and researchers alike. And this guidance that we provide has helped to remove the barriers for accessing data. So as I said, we are funded by the ESRC, the Economic and Social Research Council, to meet the needs of researchers, students and teachers from all sectors, including academia, central and local government, charities and foundations, independent research centres, think tanks and the commercial sector. The list is endless. And our collection includes major UK government sponsored surveys, cross-national surveys, longitudinal studies, UK census data, international aggregate business data and qualitative data. And really, our primary aim is to provide users with seamless and flexible access to these data sources and facilitate high quality social and economic research and education. And we do provide guidance and training for the development in data use. Our agile response to COVID-19 is enabling rapid research into the economic and social consequences of the pandemic. We hosted our first online COVID-19 data dive last year, and that had a kind of an international attendance. Researchers use the datasets we hold to investigate themes including the mental health of loneliness, inequalities widened by the pandemic and public behaviours which affected policy messaging. We also frequently advise at a national and international level on data governance, ethics and confidentiality. And more recently, we advised the Cabinet Office on its development of data draft ethics framework, and that influenced the implementation of the Digital Economy Act 2017. So I'm based at the UK Data Archive, as I say, which is at the University of Essex. And we work with colleagues across the UK to deliver the UK Data Service. So that's in collaboration with experts at JISC, CMIST, the University of Leeds, University of Southampton, the University of Edinburgh and University College London. So this is what the homepage of our website looks like. As I say, about a month ago, we launched our new website. So that's really exciting. And this is the homepage that you get. So I will invite you to spend some time later to explore this once we've finished. So you can use the menu across the top to navigate our website and kind of find your way around depending on what topics you're interested in. And you can see in the centre there, that is our most basic level data catalogue search. So in there you can pop key terms, keywords, you can pop in data sets if you know the title, so labour force survey, if you think that might be relevant for your research. And once you've hit that search bar, you'll get a set of results which you can then filter by keyword or time or type of data. But as I say, I'll invite you all to have a little look at that later. I also think the help button in the top right hand corner is particularly helpful. And the login and register button, the yellow one on the top right as well, will be particularly helpful for those of you that aren't registered yet. But I'll go through that in more detail later as well. So who is the service for and who can access our data catalogue? So researchers, students and teachers from any discipline, organisation or country may register with the UK Data Service and obtain data. Some datasets have restrictions on access due to data redistribution and license agreements that the data providers have asked us to pop in place. But there will be the opportunity for everyone to access something within our data catalogue. Most of our regular users are affiliated with higher or further education institutions, so staff, researchers, students, but everyone and anyone can register with us, and we do have many users from other sectors that use our service. So like I mentioned a little while ago, local and national government departments, charities, think tanks, independent researchers, and researchers from the commercial sector as well. So you can register if you're a commercial user, but there may be, again, some restrictions to what you can access, and there may be a fee to do so. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. We also have the option for researchers not associated with organisations to join as personal users, to pursue any interests they may have. I think the key thing is we're just really keen for people to explore the data, learn new things, and improve their data skills. So they're where our main aims stem from, really. We currently have around 23,000 users globally, and they're responsible for about 60,000 data downloads every year. So a lot. So what is data? Data are facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. It can be distinct pieces of information or numeric information such as crime rates, unemployment rates, literacy rates. And data is collected in many ways, so through surveys, administrative records, business records, censuses. So this is really going to walk you through the types of data we hold, and it will show you examples of how they can be used as well. So how do you get data? So of course you can collect it yourself, so that would obviously be primary data collection. However, this can be expensive in terms of time and money. If you kind of think about how expensive and time consuming it would be to conduct a survey on 40,000 households, for example. You also need the expertise and the experience to be able to do so. Obviously, it takes time to gather that. So secondary data analysis is often more favourable. It doesn't usually cost you anything. You can register with us for free if you're not a commercial user. No, you can register for free, actually. That was a bit misleading. You can register for free. It doesn't usually cost anything. There are a large range of data sources available, and this data will be representative, robust and transparent. This is where we come in. We can provide you with access to secondary data which is ready to analyse. We're also on hand to offer advice about the data and using it for your research. And it's important to note here that we don't collect the data ourselves. Data owners and research deposit the data with us, which you then access through us. So that kind of brings us on to sources of data. So the data we hold comes from a variety of sources, and we're allowed to disseminate them under license from the original data creator. So we have something called end user license data. Now, end user license data is available to anybody that's registered with us. So that is, I'd say a majority of our data is end user license data. And it's available to users registered with the UK Data Service. A couple of them will have little extra conditions, so you might need to be based in a certain part of the world, but it's really hard to give specific examples because we have thousands of data sets and some of them differ slightly. But all of the access conditions are under the access tab on the data catalogue. So if there are any extra special conditions that need to be met, that's where you can find those. So we have end user license. We then have special license data. Now, special license data is deemed to be a little more, there's an increased risk of disclosure, and you will be required to fill out a special license form to access special license data. setting out the project, the aims and the purposes, and your outputs. You also have to let us know where you will store the data and how it will be stored. We do have some guidance for that. Kind of has to be accessed from your organisation and things like that. We then review those forms and send them to the data owner. The data owner reviews those forms, and we will be given the go-ahead, or not, but usually the go-ahead to grant you access to those data. Those data are then downloaded via our website. Then we have secure access data, and this is data that's accessed through our Secure Lab, which is an online virtual environment. So you never actually download the data. It's all accessed within our Secure Lab. You do have to be based in the UK to be able to access secure access data, because there is that even more of an increased risk of disclosure. And there are a number of application forms that have to be completed to access secure access data. And you do also have to undergo some safe researcher training. The finding and accessing webinar on Thursday does cover that in a lot more detail, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at the end about those. So as I said before, we don't collect data ourselves. They are deposited with us, and we curate, preserve and catalogue them and make them available to researchers. So we have, as I say, a number of sources where our data come from. So from national statistical authorities, such as the Office for National Statistics, the National Records of Scotland, Northern Ireland, UK government departments like the Home Office, the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills, and the Department for Work and Pensions, intergovernmental organisations, and sorry, I was just reading some questions. Intergovernmental organisations, including the International Monetary Fund and the Office for Economic Cooperation and Development, research institutes such as the Institute for Social and Economic Research and NatSen, and individual researchers. So anybody that's done any PhD work or anything like that, researchers that are funded by the ESRC, so they also fund us, can also deposit their data through Reshare, which is our online repository, and data deposited with us in this way is also available through our data catalogue. Bit fast. So the UK Data Service holds just over 7,300 data sets of a number of types. And new data sets are added all the time. I'm sure you can imagine we've got a lot of COVID data kind of making our way over to us now. We're kind of 18 months in. And we're going to focus on 4 key types of data today. So survey microdata, international microdata, census data, and qualitative mixed methods data. So we'll start by looking at microdata and macrodata and the differences between them. So microdata is data at the individual level. It's collected from individuals through surveys. So for instance, a national census might collect age, home address, educational level, employment status, and many other variables. And this is recorded separately for each person who responds to that survey. Macrodata is data derived from microdata by statistics on groups or aggregates, such as counts, means or frequencies, and it is data at a region or country level, and this sort of data is really useful for examining how trends change over time. And as I say, macrodata can be created from microdata sources. So first we'll look at survey microdata. So we do have a large amount of survey microdata, and we will look at some examples of those in a moment. But as I say, these are mostly individual or household level data, which has been anonymised to prevent disclosure. And obviously that means it's not possible to identify individuals from the data. So that usually means that microdata is available under our end user license. These kind of data are analysed using a statistics package such as SPSS data or R, and as I say, these data are really flexible as they allow you to produce your own tables, populations, and to look at the relationship between multiple attributes. So this is a screenshot of what these type of data look like when you download them. So this is data from the British Social Attitude Survey from 2009, and we've opened it in SPSS. So this is what you would get if you downloaded it from our data. It's ready to analyse. So in the rows, you can see the people. So each row on this data set is an individual. And in the columns are the variables, which are based on the answers to the questions the people were asked. So for example, you can see the age that they were when they took this survey. So person at the top was 36, 44, 43, etc. And this is an example of a sort of output that you can create from that data. So this bar graph shows people's gross weekly pay from their main job broken down by sex using data from the annual population survey between 2004 and 2014. So the bars representing the men are the darker purple and the women are the lilac colour. So you can kind of see that in 2004, the gross weekly pay of a main job for men was £420.57, and for women it was £266.30. And then at the other end, so kind of 10 years later in 2014, the gross weekly pay of a main job for men was £499.96, and for women it was £349.36. So they're the sorts of things that can be created from the survey microdata. And again, we do offer guidance of how to do this. And some of the most commonly used of our microdata are the UK surveys. These are mostly about individuals or households. So these surveys produce very high quality data. They tend to be produced by experienced research organisations, so such as the ONS and the National Centre for Social Research, and they've got many, many years of experience in sampling, data collection, analysis, etc. They have their own methodologies, their own team of researchers and their own team of interviewers. And as I say, they are mostly representative nationally at the UK level, or the countries within the UK, depending on the particular survey. They also tend to have large sample sizes. So for example, the labour force survey interviews 60,000 people every quarter, which I think is about 30,000 households. And these are repeated cross-national surveys. So many of them are repeated annually or most years, but each time they run, they use a new sample of people. They use the same questions each time they're run, so they can be used to track trends of the population over the time. They therefore offer a snapshot at a specific point in time. So the topics that are covered kind of include health, work, crime, social attitudes, family expenditure, living costs, housing, things like that. So these are some of our most widely used cross-sectional surveys. The labour force survey is by a long way the most commonly used one, and we will talk about that specifically in a moment. But other popular examples include the annual population survey, so that's run by the ONS, and it began in 2004. It is a continuous household survey. The topics covered employment and unemployment, housing, ethnicity, religion, health, education. And the purpose of the APS is to provide information on important social and socio-economic variables at local levels. And the published statistics enable the monitoring of estimates between censuses for a large range of policy purposes, and they provide local area information for labour market estimates. And the annual population survey also uses key variables from the labour force survey, so they are very much linked. Another popular one is the crime survey for England and Wales. That was formerly the British Crime Survey. And this provides an important source of information about levels of crime, public attitudes to crime, and other related issues. So the results play an important role in informing government policy. it measures the amount of crime in England and Wales by asking people about crimes they've experienced in the last year. So this includes crimes that aren't reported to the police as well. So it's a really important alternative to police records. We then have the British Social Attitudes Survey, which we looked at in SPSS a moment ago. So that started in 1983, and it's been tracking the views and opinions of the public on big issues facing the nation in that time. So every year, NatSen, the social researchers, invite the British public to share their views on a range of topics such as work, qualities, welfare, health, and how the country is run. And for the BSA, households are randomly selected from across England, Scotland and Wales. So that way they're able to get a truly unbiased picture of the attitudes in Britain at that specific moment in time. So if we have a look at the labour force survey in more detail, as I said, this is a very, very popular data set. And it is the study of employment circumstances of the UK population. Again, it's carried out by the ONS. It started as an annual survey in 1975, and it was then collected quarterly from 1991. So when you go onto our website, you'll see it starts off as labour force survey and then quarterly labour force survey, but it's the same thing. It is the largest household study in the UK, and it provides the official measures of employment and unemployment. And this data is really important because it can be used to produce statistics put my teeth in, about matters that affect the whole community, including work, unemployment, training, retirement, and looking after the family in the home. It is intended to be representative of the whole population of the UK, and the sample design currently consists of around 33,000 responding households in every quarter. As I said before, that's about 60,000 people. The quarterly survey has a panel design whereby households stay in the same sample for 5 consecutive quarters, waves, they also call them waves, with a fifth of the sample replaced every quarter. So that means there's an 80% overlap in the samples for each successive survey. Like everything, COVID has had an impact on the LFS sample. So in 2021, when the ONS were conducting Q1, social distancing measures were implemented towards the end of that quarter, which did lead to a decline in the response rates as face-to-face interviews moved to telephone interviews. There is an LFS report available on the ONS website, which details a little bit more about that. The uneven distribution of the achieved sample across the quarter has now been accounted for with methodological changes to the LFS weights. So they have altered the survey slightly to ensure that that quarter, is still usable. And the overall achieved sample for 2020 Q1 was 77,903 individuals in 33,327 households. So it was a little bit lower than 2019 Q1. But as well as the main survey, there are several subsamples and derived data sets that are produced, including a longitudinal series and a Eurostat version of the data set as well, which we provide access to. Okay, so another large scale of nationally representative survey microdata are the longitudinal studies. So a longitudinal study is a research design that involves repeated observations of the same variables over a period of time. So this can be a short period of time or a long period of time. So as such, the same individuals are surveyed each time. So researchers get the answer to the same question for the same person over an extended period of time. So they are also at individual household level, and it allows researchers to analyse changes at the individual level, so who moves in and out of the labour market and why, or what predicts poor health in middle age, things like that. So panel studies tend to include measurement points called waves, and these waves contain a random sample of individuals across the population. So for example, some household panels run in many countries and include interviews with household members. But as we said, the core content of the questionnaire remains the same. So that allows changes in key measures to be studied. Occasionally, additional questions can be added at selected waves of the survey. So some of the panel studies that we're starting to see at the moment have popped in questions about COVID. And obviously, they're additional questions that weren't asked kind of 3-4 years ago. So Understanding Society, the UK Household Longitudinal Study, is a very, very popular study. It is the largest longitudinal household panel study of its kind, and it provides vital evidence on life changes and stability. And the study is based for the Institute for Social and Economic Research at the University of Essex. So this team are literally based across the corridor from us. It follows participants over a long period of time. And so that gives us a long-term perspective on people's lives. It helps to explore how life in the UK is changing and what stays the same. Interviewing everyone in the household to see how different generations experience life in the UK. And that means the study helps to find out about parents and children, siblings, new family formation, and wider family and community links. This also has a large sample size, about 40,000 households and around 100,000 individuals. So this allows researchers to investigate the experience of different subgroups and ethnic minorities over time. It does include an ethnic minority boost sample and a number of biomarkers. And it also consents to be linked to administrative data, such as health and education data. The end user license version of this data, which is available to everyone registered with us, is SN, so study number 6614, and that can then be linked to special license data as well. The special license data contains different levels of geographies, so local authority district or lower layer super output areas. Just as 2 examples. And coverage for this study kind of includes current employment and earnings, benefit payments, political party identification, household finances, environmental behaviours, parenting and childcare arrangements, family networks, religion, ethnicity, health. There's a lot in there. It's a really, really useful survey. Another kind of longitudinal study is the cohort study. So these follow individuals who have a particular event in common. And because they are interviewed at a key point in time, this does mean that they're interviewed less frequently. The most common event that these follow are people born in 1 week in a particular year, and then tracks them over time. And some will follow the cohort over their whole lifetime. There are 3 popular ones, which we will look at in a moment. But rather than waves, the measurement points for cohort studies are generally called sweeps, and they again tend to focus on health, social and economic circumstances. Because they are conducted in different decades, they can be used to look at generational change, and because of this, the contents of the questionnaire tend to be age specific, so the questions change over time to reflect this. Sorry, I can see a couple of you are raising your hands. I will come to you at the end, I promise. Here you can see probably the 3 most popular cohort studies that we provide access to. The first being the 1958 National Child Development Study. So this is following the lives of an initial 17,415 people born in England, Scotland and Wales in a single week of 1958. So I'm just seeing your questions pop up as well. It has collected information on their physical, educational development, economic circumstances, employment and family life, health behaviour, well-being, social participation and attitudes, And the study's become an invaluable data source on topics such as the effects of socioeconomic circumstances and child adversities on health and social mobility as well. It's also become an important resource for the study of genetics. We then have the 1970 British cohort survey, which is following the lives of about 17,000 people born in England, Scotland and Wales in a single week of 1970. And this has been really important source for evidence on key policy areas. We then have the Millennium Cohort Survey study, and this is also known as the Child of the New Century to the cohort members and their families. And this is following the lives of about 19,000 young people born across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland in 2002. So it began with an original sample of 18,818, it's an easy number to remember, cohort members, and it provides multiple measures of the cohort's members' physical, socioeconomic, cognitive and behavioural development over time. But it also includes information about their daily life, their behaviour and experiences. And the National Pupil Database has also been linked to Millennium Cohort study data, including GCSE exam results. There's another type of microdata that I want to mention briefly, cross-national surveys. So these are individual or household level data, and because the studies use the same survey instrument and where possible the same methodology and fieldwork protocols, this allows comparisons to be made across many countries and nations. So again, topics include kind of education, income, working conditions and poverty. Some examples are the European Quality of Life Survey, the European Quality Election Study, the European Social Survey and the European and World Values Survey, all available through our data catalogue. And if we move on to international macro data, international macro data are data that has been aggregated to a country or regional level. So it is a time series data, and depending on the database, it will be available annually, quarterly or monthly. And we update the data really regularly. Some of these, as they are updated every month. Many of our data banks are the current releases of the major statistical publications, and these are produced by intergovernmental organisations such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. Much of the data is available through the UK Data Service to staff and students from UK higher or further education institutions. And these are the access conditions that are agreed with the data owners. However, increasingly, more and more of these data sources are becoming open access. The World Bank ones in particular are definitely becoming more readily available. Obviously with open access, you don't actually have to be registered with us, but we'd really like it if we did. So these are the sorts of things that those data banks cover. You've got economic performance and development, trade, industry and markets, employment, migration and health, and governance, and any other indicators of national performance and developments, really. So you can download the series you wish to use from the appropriate online tool. So this is usually UKDS Stat or the IMF eLibrary. So if you pop the names of any of the data sets you're interested in the data catalogue, you should be able to find them. You can, when you access these data, you can view the data by provider, and you can extract the exact information you require. So if you use UKDS Stat, you can view the data by provider, and it enables you to extract the information you require from the large number of data sets we have available. There are a number of user guides and video tutorials that you can use to help. I will point you in the direction of those in a little while. But a really good one for this is it's a video, and it's called Accessing, Exploring and Visualizing Data in UK DS Stat. So that's a good place to get started if you're interested in international macro data. And then this is an example of an output that can be created using international macro data. So this graph shows the population aged 65 and over between 1960 and 2017 in Brazil, Cambodia, Finland, Greece, Iran, Spain, the United Kingdom and the United States. And this uses data from the World Bank. Perfect. So the next type of data we will be looking at is census data. Again, very, very popular, particularly because we've done one recently. So this is a different type of macro data, and this is data that comes from the census. So the census has a long history going back to 1801. It takes place every 10 years, and obviously the most recent one was March this year. And we provide access to and user support for the last 5 censuses. So census data is kind of considered the gold standard. It aims to cover 100% of the population, and it's used as a baseline for many, many statistics. It contains detailed combinations of characteristics, and there are a range of topics. And it's available in many geographies, and that makes it possible to reliably compare different areas, which is what makes it so unique. Census data can be divided into different outputs, so aggregate, boundary, flow, and microdata. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. Most of our census data is now open. So people registered with the UK Data Service can access it really easily. There may be some restrictions on some elements of the census data that we have. It depends which census year you're looking at and what sort of information you'd like to extract. So topics vary each census. So you've got kind of the regular variables and questions, so age, sex, health, religion, ethnicity, travel to work, household composition, things like that, car ownership. But in the last 4 censuses, new topics such as national identity and whether somebody has a second home were also included. So that's really, really interesting. So we're going to begin by looking at census aggregate data. So this aggregate data provides counts, usually of an individual or household, with particular characteristics for an area. And these areas can be large or small. And the benefit of having census data is that it allows you to be very flexible. So you may want to produce tables or graphs based on a very small population. So you might like to look at the number of people that were aged 50, were unemployed, within each of the wards in a district of Greater Manchester. So you've got the number of people, you've got a characteristic or a combination of characteristics, and a set of geographical zones as well. The characteristics could include a wide range of information, so demographic and socio-economic themes, and these would all have been gathered as part of the census process. If you are interested in using census aggregate data, then you can use Infuse for 2001 and 2011. So this is the interface that you'll see, and it's all done within your web browser via our website. As you can see, we have in the top left there, you can see UK Data Service Census Support. So if you pop the census data that you're looking for in that search bar of our data catalogue on our homepage, you can very quickly find census information, particularly because you can filter by year, and you can select census as your data type. So you can filter it down to the sorts of thing you're looking for. And this will point you in the direction of Infuse. And it's designed to guide users in selecting census aggregate data relating to combinations of characteristics and areas of interest to them. So you can see on there, they've got 90 topic combinations, accommodation type, age, dependent children, economic activity, hours worked, and you can specify your parameters on there and extract that information out, which you can then use to produce outputs such as this. So these maps show you how the number of people who define themselves as Christian has declined in England and Wales between 2001 and 2011. The darker red areas are where more than 80% of the people define themselves as Christian, and the lighter, where it goes to pink and white areas, are where less than 50% of people define themselves as Christian. We also provide access to various census boundary for a range of geographies. So we provide this for between 1981 and 2011. So this is the sort of thing you could produce with using boundary data. So you can see on the top left is the largest regions, and then you can zoom into smaller and smaller geography areas until you get to wards, and the smallest area is super output areas. So the last picture there, you can see we've zoomed into the Wirral. So the boundaries are available in a range of geographic information systems, so GIS, GIS formats, and can be explored via our boundary data selector, which looks like this. So again, this can be found via our data catalogue, and this is the boundary data selector and what it looks like on our website. You can see at the top there is some guidance if you'd like to know how to use it before you get going, or if you get a little bit stuck. You can consult that guide, and you can also get in touch with us as well. As I say, these are currently available for 1981, 1991, 2001 and 2011 census data, and there are other kind of boundaries as well. You can see in the top left you've got a postcode directory and a postcode data selector there as well. So you start by selecting the country you're researching. You can then select the geography and then the dates that you're interested in. Census flow data, which is what we will look at next, is also known as interaction data. And these are data that relate to the flows of people between places. So whereas most census data relate to counts of people at single locations, flow data describes interactions between two locations, so origins and destinations usually. The most common relate to migration. So this is derived from the place of residence at census day compared to the usual residence in the previous year, and also commuting flows, so the difference between the place of residence and the place of work. The data from the 2011 census did also include information on movements between main and second addresses. Like we said, that was something that was added in. And currently, migration and commuting data are available for 1981, 1991, 2001 and 2011. And these are available through our Wicked tool. So it's web-based interface to census interaction data. I have to read that one, it's a bit of a mouthful. As well as some annual migration data derived from the NHS patient registered. So Wicked is a flexible interface which provides access to flow data, and it works in a really similar way to the other tools that we've seen. You can search for the data in census data in our catalogue. You'll be pointed towards the census area and the census support services, and there you'll be able to find the Wicked tool. Finally, we have census microdata. So we provide access to cross-sectional census microdata. These are anonymised individual level records sampled from a single census. They are large individual level files, and they resemble the sort of data that might be collected directly from a questionnaire. Because individual records contained a wide range of individual and household characteristics, the data enable multivariate analysis for a wide range of purposes. So it tends to be more flexible as you can produce your own tables, populations and attributes. So the UK Data Service holds contemporary data from 1981 to 2011 and microdata samples from 1961 onwards. And we also have a sample of anonymised records, so SARS, and these sample sizes are between 1% and 5% depending on the data set. As I say, these are like surveys but have been produced from the census. It's important to point out that those SARS data sets do have slightly stricter access conditions. They are readily available to those based in the UK, but if you're outside the UK, we do have to request permission for you to access those. So there'll be a short form to fill in to let us know why you'd like to access the data and the purpose of your project, things like that. And you will also need a written reference from somebody at your organisation to support your research. But if anyone's got any questions about those, we can do that at the end. Brilliant. So that covers everything that we hold and has kind of touched on how to access it and the tools that can be used to access them. So we're going to move on now to registering with the UK Data Service. A lot of you at the polls at the beginning said you weren't yet registered, so I hope that you find that useful. The way you register with us can vary depending on which particular sector you come from. So we use federated access management user authentication, and you will need a username and password to register. So if you are from a UK higher or further education organisation, the chances are, excuse me, you will be able to register through your institution. And this will be via the username or password issued to you by your institution. So it's usually, not always, but usually the username and password that you use to access things like your emails or your library portals or things like that. So if you're unsure of what your username and password would be, you will need to contact your library or IT help desk or your e-resources administrator. And there may be some web pages on your institutional website that will help you as well. But that is the yellow button there that you can look out for on our website if you wish to register and then log in that way. If you're not from a UK institution of further or higher education, that's absolutely fine. You can still register with us, but you will have to first apply for a username, a UK Data Archive username. When you click on that register button, you will be directed, I'll show you, I've got a screenshot on the next page, but you'll be directed to the left-hand side of the screen where you can complete a username application form. So that just asks you for kind of your personal details, name, address, organisation, and you also get to choose a password. So whatever password you pop into that form, please remember, because we can't reset your password until you've logged in for the first time. So please remember what password you pop into that form. If you do have to register via the username route, we have different user types which we'll ask you to choose. So this may be personal or genealogical user, a commercial, central local government, staff for Institute of Higher Education, because you might be outside the UK, and what role you have there. So for example, a lecturer at the University of California would be classified under the staff at High Institute education user type. It's important to remember though that your use of the data doesn't necessarily correspond to your user type. So it's quite common for commercial users, for example, to have non-commercial projects, and you can still create a non-commercial project if we would consider your company to be a commercial company. If you do have any questions about that, do let me know at the end. We do screen these username applications manually, so please do allow about 3 working days for us to get back to you. We do receive many applications on a daily basis. As I say, they're all screened manually, so please bear in mind that time that it might take to get your username if you need data relatively quickly. So as I say, this is what it looks like when you register on the website. So once you click that orange button at the top, you'll get the option to log in. So if you are from a UK organisation, a UK higher or further organisation, you can start typing the name of your organisation into that box. It should then, a drop-down list should then appear, and you should be able to select your organisation. You'll then be redirected to your organisational login page. So as I said, this is usually the page you see if you're trying to log into your emails, for example, and you'll then be prompted to agree to our end user license, our terms and conditions, and then you just follow a simple set of instructions to complete your registration. If you need a username, you can see on the left hand side here, you've got request a username. If you click on that hyperlink, you'll be directed to the username application form, And once you are registered, you click this link at the bottom here where it says, if you have a username beginning with UKD, use this link to log in. You'll be able to click that link, you'll be able to pop your username in and your password, and off you're ready to go. I just wanted to take this opportunity to advertise my colleague Maddie's webinar on Thursday, the 7th of October. So that's finding and accessing data from the UK Data Service workshop. So if you've attended today, now you know a little bit more about the data, but you're still a little bit unsure how to find it. I hope you're not. I hope this has helped. Please do pop over to her workshop on Thursday. She'll be covering the different data licenses in much more detail, and also showing you other ways to search our data catalogue, so Qualibank, and she can show top tips of narrowing down your search beyond what we've covered today, so beyond keyword, date and things like that. That's very much her area of expertise. And you can register for this in the exact same way that you registered for this one, so through our events page on our website. So, useful resources and further help. We do have a help section on our website homepage that is designed for new users in particular, and these are designed to help with any questions you may have regarding registration, finding and accessing data, and help with the data documentation. So each data set in our data catalogue has a documentation section, and within these sections are things like user guides, variable guides, things like that. Data dictionary documents are a big one. If you're looking to apply for special license or secure access data, those data dictionaries contain a list of all of the variables that are contained within that data. Obviously, because that data isn't available to download right away, you can't download it to see what it contains. So that list of variables alongside the user guide is really, really helpful. But of course, you can always contact us as well if you need any further confirmation about what data sets contain. So these are our help pages. So along the top of the website, there is a help section. So you go home and then help. And there's that advice for new users section, as well as other frequently asked questions. You've got the data documentations, frequently asked questions for new users, and tips to search the data catalogue as well. We also have a learning hub. So these are where you find the resources to help you figure out how to use the data we provide. We really want to see data at its maximum potential. So to help with that, we offer these resources. And as I say, that's in the learning hub. So you can see just at the top, it's the third tab. So this contains information, advice and support to enhance your data skills. So including kind of how to teach with data. If you are brand new to the data, the new to using data section may be useful. It includes best practice and training for researchers new to accessing and using our data. And it includes advice and tools to correctly cite the data. Student-specific information on our dissertation award for undergraduate students and more. You can also see just next to that we have data skills modules available. So these are introductory level interactive modules and are designed for users who want to get to grips with the key aspect of survey, longitudinal and aggregate data, so everything that we've kind of spoken about today. These modules can be conducted in your own time and you're able to dip in and out of them when needed. And they kind of give an introduction to the key aspects of the data using short instructional videos, there's quizzes in there and activities using open access data where possible, so it's all within your web browser. And as I say, each module stands alone, but for those of you that have kind of little experience of surveys, you may find it useful to start with the survey data module before moving on to things like the longitudinal data module. And as I say, we also offer guidance for using real research data to bring teaching and learning to life. So you can use our extensive teaching data collections, and just below these on the website, you can see resources to support your training, teaching and learning. Finally, I'd just like to draw your attention to the contact us part of the website. So just in the top right hand corner, here you can explore the frequently asked questions. And if your question isn't answered here, you can continue down the page to get in touch with our help desk. If you choose this option, you'll be able to complete a web form, and you can choose one best suited to your query, so registration, analysing data, online tools, technical problems, whatever it may be. And these are set up to be directed to the best team within the UK Data Service to help you. So this may be our technical support team if you're having a technical issue, or our support team if you have a question that's really specific to a certain data set. And we do also have a telephone, but we are all working at home at the moment, and unfortunately we don't have access to that phone. But we are hoping to return in the next few weeks, so that will be up and running again. We do try to respond to all queries within 5 working days of receiving them. So we will get back to you, but please do try to explore the frequently asked questions first, as the answer to your question may well be there. But we are, of course, more than happy to help. So we've got some time now if you'd like to just take 5 minutes to have a little break, or think of any questions that you might have, just to explore the website. So you can take a look at anything that we've just spoken about. You can have a go at searching the data catalogue, perhaps finding some data sets in the data catalogue and then looking at the data documentation. So I'll just let you do that for 5 minutes or so, and we'll then have some time for any questions that you've either already raised, would like to raise, or would like to raise after looking at the website. Okay, I think there are quite a few questions, so I'm conscious I'd like to answer as many as I can. So I will move on. So thank you very much. On this slide, you can just see the link to our contact help desk page, frequently asked questions page, our email address, so that's where we return any forms. We can also be contacted via email. But again, you've still got the same kind of 5-day turnaround time, so completely up to you whether you prefer to do the web form or the email. The advantage with the web form is that it will automatically be directed to the right team. And also our Twitter feed as well, where you can keep up to date with our latest news. Can I use VPN to access data if I'm abroad? Very good question. So this depends on a number of things. So end user license data, a majority of that can just be stored on your computer. So theoretically, if you've got your computer with you, you can download it and you don't need to access via VPN. For special license and secure access data, they have to be, so special license data has to be stored in a certain way. So it has to be stored at your organisation, and Secure Lab, for our secure access data, obviously you never download it, it's accessed via that virtual environment. We do have a temporary home working agreement in place for special license and secure access. So we have a majority, not all, because we did have to seek data owner permission and not all data owners agreed to the home working agreement, but a majority did. They have agreed that these data can be accessed via a VPN. So special license data stored on your organisation computer can be accessed via VPN. You do have to be able to adhere to a certain number of conditions. So off the top of my head, you have to answer some questions about antivirus, like make sure your computer is up to date with antivirus software, things like that. If you just pop into Google home working agreement UK Data Service, you can see a list of all of the conditions, but we do have that temporary home working agreement in place. At the moment, we don't know how long that's going to be in place for, but we haven't been told of any immediate plan to withdraw that, because obviously we're very conscious of different COVID situations across the world, so no immediate plan to withdraw that. Any data on swimming pools and COVID? Very good question. We certainly do have lots of COVID data flooding in. A majority of all of our new stuff coming in is COVID related. I'd recommend looking at Understanding Society. They have probably the most COVID data sets coming through at the moment. Off the top of my head, I couldn't say definitely yes, there's data on swimming pools. And yeah, so I'd have a look at Understanding Society. I think, what is the data set? 8644 is the COVID specific one. I think it's got 8644. Try that one. If not, it's 8664. There's 2 Understanding Society COVID ones, and they've got very similar study numbers. So that would be a good place to look. If you can't find anything, please do submit a web form, because our support team, they have experts in their team for Understanding Society or COVID data, so they definitely be able to recommend some suitable data for you. Is Northern Ireland not included in the surveys? Is that data available separately somewhere else? It really depends on the survey. A lot of them do have Northern Ireland included, others do have Northern Ireland in a separate data set. So your best thing to do for that would probably be to search in the data catalogue and then narrow down by country. Brilliant. So someone's put from Northern Ireland too, just found some local surveys specific to us. So super. And they've popped that in the chat. I would be interested to know what, if any, historical data is held. Is it all 20th century onwards? No. So we do have our ISEM data set, and that starts in the 1800s. That we have both an anonymised version of that data and a special license version, and that has names of addresses for people who, I can't remember the exact years off the top of my head. I want to say 1851, might be 1871. But the I can tell you the special license study number for ISEM is 7856. So if you pop that into the data catalogue, ISEM should come up. And you should be able to find the end user license version by doing that as well. Or if you just pop ISEM in, so ICEM, it's data catalogue, that will come up. Do you have anything on looked after children and education? Yes, I believe we do. Again, a keyword search would be really helpful for that one. You can also go to the find data section of the website and search by theme. So I think we have like family, I think it's called family, a family theme page, and that's got tables that break down the data sets and what sort of things they contain. Do these surveys allow us to identify where individual participants live, for example? Yeah, absolutely. It says, for example, postcode, approximate, lat, long, or LOSA, etc. Appreciate that these may have high levels of restriction. Yes, perfect. So we do have a secure access version of Labour Force Survey, a secure access version of Understanding Society, a secure access version of the Annual Population Survey. So all of those will allow you to dive deeper into location of a participant. They will all be accessible via the Secure Lab. And when you use Secure Lab, you have to seek permission to withdraw any outputs, so they undergo a check by our support team. So you won't be able to withdraw anything that's sensitive, but you'll be able to do work within that data in the Secure Lab, which is more sensitive than we'd usually allow. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Brilliant. Do you know when the 2021 census will be available? Very good question. I don't. I know that obviously the ONS are working their socks off at the moment, getting everything ready. But I can certainly find out for you. If you'd like to email or pop a web form across, I can certainly find out for you, yes. I do know that that's not very helpful to you if you're looking for the 2021, but I know the 1921 census is due for release in early 2022. So we hope that will be available via us as well. What else have we got? Is registration time limited? I.e., if through a FE institution, would it be for 3 years or is it ongoing? Very good question. So with our registration, they're not time limited. They are kept active by you logging in. So each time you log into your account, your registration is extended by 2 years. So, you know, the more regular you log in, the longer your registration will be active for. We do ask that if you change organisation, you re-register with us, just so we make sure that you've got access to everything that you're able to access based on your user type and your location. We can transfer any projects from old accounts to new accounts. That's absolutely fine. Just get in touch. But yes, your registration renews by 2 years every time you log in. So you don't have to worry about it expiring. You know, if you work at a further institution, you're there for 10 years, you can have that for 10 years. That's absolutely. For ESRC funded projects, we are collecting several types of data from qualitative to quantitative. We are preparing all of our qualitative data for depositing. But I have a question with regards to the clinical individual. These data are available from trusts. We submitted a request to these trusts to complete the procedures and receive the data, so we didn't collect them or generate them. Do we have to deposit these data sets as well, as they are available from the trusts anyway? Also, clinical data are quite sensitive even after high levels of anonymisation. Very good question. That would be one for our reshare team to answer for sure, and that isn't quite my area of expertise, I'm afraid. So if you'd like to pop a web form across, we can make sure that they see that and get in touch with you directly, and you can have a really in-depth conversation with them about that. What's the advantage of accessing the data through the UK Data Service over the ONS? As much data is easily available through their website. So it's completely up to you. We obviously provide the hands-on guidance as well, which I'm sure the ONS do. It is completely up to you, really. Secure Lab and the Secure Lab and the ONS SRS are a similar thing. So they're both virtual environments for which you can access secure data. The ONS process is slightly different to ours. I think they set up their ONS SRS slightly differently to us. So it's completely up to you which one you choose. It depends how your organisation can most efficiently and quickly set up your access, I guess, if you're talking about it in relation to Secure Lab and ONS SRS. They look for slightly different things when setting that up. You do have to attend a safe researcher training for secure access data. You can either train through us or train through the ONS, but both of the training sessions are the same and you complete the same assessment at the end. I guess accessing data through the UK Data Service, we don't just have ONS owned data sets. So we do have, I don't know for sure, but we perhaps have a little bit of a wider range of data available. It's not solely ONS owned data. It's completely up to you. We'd like it if you'd accessed it through us, but the ONS is another resource as well. Just conscious of the time. Do you think end user license data is flexible enough for individual or household level analysis? Yes, absolutely. Understanding society would be a really, really good place to start. As I say, SN 6614 and the labour force survey as well. The end user license data set for those are really, really good. There's lots of study numbers for labour force survey, so I can't give you one, but Understanding Society combines all of the waves into one data set, and then the data set gets updated with every wave, rather than the labour force survey, and a brand new data set is released every quarter, so there's a lot of them. But yes, I definitely think it's flexible enough, and as I say, there's lots of guides on the website, or we can pop you in touch with someone from our support team if you would like some more support. What else have we got? There you go. Census data is planned to start being released from March 2022. Thank you very much. Do pharmaceutical companies deposit data with you? I believe we are having more and more medical data deposited with us. Obviously, it is a slightly tricky one because pharmaceutical data and everything that could be contained within that, there is that increased risk of disclosure, and it can be quite sensitive. I wouldn't say a massive amount of our data catalogue is deposited by pharmaceutical companies, but there's certainly some, and there's certainly other data sets which ask questions about the pharmacy sector and things like that. Yeah, I think that's all of the questions that I can see. So I will stop sharing my screen. And thank you very much, everyone. If there is anything else, please do Is one more, is Understanding Society free for international HE stuff? It is indeed. The 6614 definitely is, and depending on where you are, the special license data should be available for you as well. Understanding Society are really good. They are very keen to make their data as widely accessible as possible. For those looking to deposit data, who typically agrees to the license agreement? I believe our collections team liaise with the principal investigators for that project. Yes. Yes, I believe it's the principal investigators that you liaise with our team, and yeah, however you'd like to deposit, you sign a license and things like that. But thank you very much, everyone. I hope you found it useful.